Hi there, guys and dolls, ghouls and girls and gals and boys and all those folks out there. It's time again to relax to soothing sounds. Trusty Ape Radio. Damn, I messed up. Is that you out again? I fucked up anyway. That's how it's supposed to start. I almost remembered one tonight. That's another one I used to do. That's a no effects song though. Well, the chat is bumping tonight. Well, we've had a busy couple of nights, so yeah, appreciate everybody coming by and hanging out. I'm recycling the old. I'm gonna review the list and all that good stuff. See what I got going on here. All right, so top of the list, battery did not get that done. Bike tire did not get that done. Library, went to the library, got some paperwork. We needed to do that. Turned in the Wi-Fi hotspot, but they did not have another one available. So, yeah, go back or go down to the other library and see if they have another hotspot. Because right now I'm without that. Oh, recycling. Nope, didn't do that. Okay, I talked to the people that I'm supposed to be making payments to, and there's been everything is fucking snafu. So I'm trying to keep them from suing me. So, but they did agree to even like cut my monthly payments in half. It would just take me longer to pay it off, but it's like fuck it, as long as you make that monthly payment, then they won't sue me. So that's good, because I think $3,000 could bankrupt me right now. I don't know. It seems like. Okay, check the mail. Haven't done that. All those people I got to call. Yeah, okay. Make a plan. Take action. Be persistent. Today, tomorrow, and every other day. Okay, and I'm putting off getting the loan so I can push the payback date back because I have to pay off. I have to pay my credit card and my overdraft protection on the first two, so I can get rent and those things. Okay, now I got that paperwork. I just have to fill it out and file it. Fucking pain in the ass. The joys of adults. It's Groundhog Day. It's not actually, but it is for me. That fucking Bill Murray movie.
Lacking a bit. I don't work on that too much now. I don't play bass. I haven't played bass in such a long time. So yeah, there's that one. Just tuned down to drop D for a little bit. I don't know. I haven't played in drop D for a while either. Yeah, I don't know what that was, but hey, yeah. That thing. So yeah, on the side note, this cute Asian girl, she gave me her phone number. I don't know, it was I was like, it's kind of random, but I've been wanting to kind of ask her for her number, but she just like gave it to me. Like now I've got her number, but kind of weird. She was like talking about going to a food giveaway. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. No, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I don't know. Might do that. I don't know. It's possible. Yeah, it's a weird first date, though, right?
Yeah, see, that's what I like about the drop G. I mean, it's got its uses, but then it's like sometimes it's kind of limiting. I'm feeling that, but yeah. Somewhere there. We were tuning by here again. Yeah, the world is full of possibilities, and also people taking your money. So yeah, be ready for that. You've never been out there in the world. Everybody wants some of your money. Some of them will take it too. Thieves. They're all thieves, I tell you. Maybe I should get in the cahoots with them, those IRS guys. They seem to, be fucking rolling in everybody else's dough. All they do is go around taking other people's shit. You say change the system from within, but I'm like, fuck it, I'll just be the system. I will embody everything that is wrong with the system. No, don't do that. That's not okay. The trustee ape does not condone this type of behavior. It's an interesting thought experiment, though. I feel like, is it just slightly off, or is it just me? How? So yeah, it's pretty typical Thursday, I guess. Not a lot of action. I did get to do some good by pure happenstance. Um, I tell this story in the evidentiary way. Yeah. So on the job, I got called over to like escort this guy off the bus because he was drunk and he was talking some nonsense. And the driver's like, "Yeah, I don't know where this guy's going, but he needs to catch a different ride." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And the guy was nice enough. He needed a little help walking. He's stumbling around a bit. Showed me his bottle of vodka. I was like, "Okay, dude, that's neat. Just sit down here, and chill, and we'll get you out of here pretty soon." Went on about my business. But I kind of noticed this guy was a little different. I was keeping an eye on him. And so over the course of about an hour, he ended up pissing off everybody who was sitting on the bench next to him. Like he was nice, but he was just like they kept asking repetitive questions and saying, just being pretty strange. And I was like, okay, so some other guy who had obviously already been in a fight, like before he got to the bus stop, and he's like trying to find his way to the hospital. Now he's over here about to fight this guy, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get in the middle of this. And this is when I'm like, okay, like now I'm trying to figure out what this guy's deal is, where he's really trying to go. I'm not getting straight answers. I'm like, what's going on? I know he's got like, so dude was a legit like escaped patient. Um, so we ended up, contacting the authorities, getting him returned to where he's supposed to be. But he was like, on the lam type of shit, but like legit, case where he has a disorder and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, got this guy to safety. It only took a couple hours, but in the meantime, a little bit of more on the job experience. Because I was like, I knew it wasn't just some drunk asshole. You just be like, get out of here, go fucking dry out. Like after trying to reason with this guy, I'm like, there's something wrong with this guy's reasoning capabilities. Yeah, very much so. Okay, caught that one. Haven't completely lost my senses out here. It was tiring. I'll tell you, it was an overload on the senses, on the nerves. It's like, Jesus, man, give me some information I can use. You can get a goddamn thing out of the guy. Yeah, fun parts of being out there doing public service. Hey, Mikey Sue's Fort. Good to see you again. Hanging out, doing another little late night hanging out, talking. I'm talking smack, No, you try to relate to good experiences. Focus on the positive. Okay, positive experiences, and try to keep that rolling. We're all tired at the end of the day. Working or not working sometimes, but life is still tiring, whatever we're doing, there's always something in adulthood. Three in chat. I'll post a link. As I was talking about saying earlier, I was talking about I don't have a Wi-Fi hotspot still, so gotta try to get that worked out. But another stream from the phone. So nothing fancy, nothing spectacular. Just hanging out and doing this thing. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really like this woman. This woman that's been coming down to my stop, and she seems like a single woman. I don't know. It's hard to say, but we talk in passing when she's coming and going from work and stuff, and but she's very sweet, bubbly personality that I'm finding really, really attractive. So like that.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Mikey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, okay, good. I'm not crackling or anything.
No.
Okay. You were playing the guitar great, man. I feel bad because I can't play instruments anymore. I'm not that good at it. The last thing I played was drums, and that was for a buddy of mine, and that was so long ago. It's so long ago.
Yeah, it's all about practice. Like I'm out of practice too. That's why I'm in part just using these sessions to practice a little bit every day too. It's like just strum a few chords. It's like I know all these techniques, but if I don't keep working at them, then you kind of like you don't lose it. You kind of remember how to do it, but you lose the
The enjoyment, maybe.
yeah, a little bit. I think that's a different thing, but I just mean like the connection to the instrument. Like I know what I'm trying to do, but it feels like I'm like a waking limb or something, like I know this. I should have this in muscle memory, right? But my hands don't respond the way that they should if I was in practice.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you said, if I recall our last conversation, you did say that you played for at least two bands. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, those are my regular projects these days. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and well, which I don't know. I guess what I want to ask you is, of your two bands, are they both like equally awesome or cool, or is there one that you favor over the other?
No, I mean, they're both awesome in their own ways. I'd say, one is kind of it's my baby in the sense that, I thought up the name, I branded the logo,
Yeah,
um,
trust the
I
apes.
write 99% of the material for it, so that's my baby. Whereas
Yeah,
the
there you
other
go.
one is more of a collaboration. I'm kind of the new guy in the collaboration, but I have written some songs there as well.
So that helps. Yeah. Well, that's why when you said that your one of your groups is called the Trusty Apes, I said, "Wow, okay, that's totally cool. That's original title for a band, which I'd probably never heard of from like, you know, anything else in music, and so nice, very nice
Yeah.
original title for a band."
Thank you, thank you. It was one of the many failed titles for my first band, which ended up being called No Right Turn. But I had a whole list of names, and we ended up reusing a bunch of them later on. So there was Trusty Apes, Civilized Beasts was another one that was on there that we ended up using in another project of mine, and they were all on this list that I wrote when I was like, I don't know, 11 years old or 12 years old or something, trying to think of a band name.
Yeah, I know. Well, like I said, before, when I was performing with my friend Bobby Cook. He just called it Bobby Cook's Jamioki Band, which, of course, yeah, it sounds original, but I had no idea what jamioki meant. He says, "Well, it's just live music mixed with karaoke on screen. So if somebody is singing, no, and it was a brand new concept that he actually went. Get this, he went to the United States Patent Office in Washington D.C. Bobby's telling me this. Is he went there and he patented the name. Literally said the word jamioki. So and he says if anybody says it anywhere, you get compensation. You get paid for that. So over the course of all these years, he's been using jamioki and performing. Anytime anybody said it or used it in another form, playing music or whatever, he got paid every time. He did the right thing. He went and got a patent as a word. So and he could get
Interesting.
paid for that. Yeah, jamioki. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a very interesting concept. I mean, you get people to sing their regular karaoke on the screen, but you get a live band that can actually back them up, and they have to agree, right? I mean, the person who sings has to agree. First of all, yes, I may need harmonies, and I need them. So that was my speciality, was I got to sing harmonies with some of these, wonderful people that wanted to try the concept, and then in other ways, if they wanted our band to play for them in the background, I would play drums, I would play congas, I would play maracas. I just do all sorts of percussion instruments. per se. And that was my duty. That was my job. Now Danny, who was a buddy of mine also, and he was like the second co-founder of this band, would take care of more heavy drumming, you know, drum set and things like that. I would just go ahead and take care of mostly the percussion. But I mean, Bobby did piano, he did guitar, Danny did guitar. It was a great band concept, and I was blessed. I got to play with him for 7 years. So I was just, yeah, it was just great.
Very nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome. The the other interesting thing with the Trusty Apes,
yeah.
what my first band, No Right Turn, we were going to use it for. We never did, but we had talked about it. Was to have a cover band, and we would dress up in costume and then open shows for ourselves and come out and just do a bunch of cover tunes was kind of our what we were going to do with it, and then that ended up getting scrapped. But yeah, that was what the Trusty Apes were going to be many years ago. It was kind of a
Wow.
weird kind of concept.
What kind of covers did you do? What kind of music covers did you do?
A lot of like '90s punk and grunge, Nirvana. We did some Primus.
Did you do
Um,
Soundgarden?
no, we never did Soundgarden.
Aw, that would have been nice.
Yeah, we were very
I got
into
to
the
talk to
Nirvana
I got to
Foo
talk to
Fighters
Chris
clique,
Cornell.
so we were pretty heavy into that.
Yeah.
We tried to do some Alice in Chains. Um,
Oh yeah, Alice in Chains. Yeah, they're good.
yeah, but a
Yeah.
lot more on the punk end of it, more than the heavy side. I was anti metal, and I was in the whole metal punk thing of the '90s, '80s and '90s. I was kind of anti metal for a while because I always felt like the metal guys were kind of jerks, and so I leaned towards the more punk
no,
end.
no. There's one guy that at well, first of all, I got to talk to Chris Cornell through through YouTube because it was really by accident. He like came across one of my other channel, which was called Warlord Fade Channel, and he saw one of these videos that I was. He didn't even tell me which one it was, so I'm really upset with him. That's okay. He's gone now, so. But he didn't tell me exactly which one it was. But he said that I sang on a song. He really liked it, and he says, how long you been doing this?" I said, "Well, I've been singing since 1996," and I told him a cool story where I was working in a office building near downtown Phoenix, and I was listening to an alternative rock station. And the first time I heard Black Hole Sun on Super Unknown, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I said, "This is one of the greatest rock tunes I've heard in like, 15, 20 years." And I asked him personally, and I said, texted him personally, and I said, "So," I said to Chris, I said, "I think this is one of your best songs you ever did in live, in rock." And he says, "Well," he says, "to be honest," he says, the song that follows it." I said, "Yeah, Spoon Man," which is a good song too. He says, "I actually preferred that one more than I did Black Hole Sun." And I was like, "Wow." I mean, total honesty. And he was like telling me he enjoyed one song over another. And, one that came a big hit and the other one that was just sort of a hit, just sort of there. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I had the same experience with a guy. You might recognize the band Godsmack.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sully, who is Sully Edna, who is the head guy there. I actually, what I did is I discovered one of their first songs, their first videos. So what I did was I consulted him, and he says, "Yeah," he says, "I enjoy doing this." And I said, "Yeah, there's a song that you do I just saw recently on a video called Alive." And he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "that took us a couple of months to shoot." I was like, "Oh really? Wow, okay." Then I told him, I said I recognized your song, the title track to the Scorpion King, one of the songs he did for that movie for the soundtrack. And he says, "Yeah, that was fun." He says, "I enjoyed that." I said, "I really do enjoy your singing. It's got An eclectic vibe. He says, eclectic? Interesting. I never heard that word before. I said, yeah. I said, I like to compliment musicians that way. So I got to talk to him, texting, of course, through YouTube. And then two others I actually talked to. This will be real quick. The other two band guys I talked to beforehand were Ed Roland and Joel from the uh, the band Collective Soul. And this was before I got to see them in concert. This was down in Tempe, Arizona. And we were at a place that's no longer there. It's a Mexican restaurant called Monty's, La Casa Vieja. And we sat there for like an hour, hour and a half. We were talking about music, bands, all sorts of stuff. And he says, well, when you come to our concert, he said, make sure you're towards the front because it sounds better than like, stretching in the back. I said, no problem. I'll get to the front of the stage. No problem there. He said, also, he says, what's one of our favorite songs that you like? And I said, oh, that's easy. What is it? Oh, great. How could I forget that song? Oh, Shine. That's it. The song Shine. And I said, well, that's a great song. And he says, I said, will you guys play it, and recognize me? And he says, oh, yeah. He says, we'll play it sometime in the set. He says, we're going to do like 2 sets. And he says, and it'll be one of them. And I said, okay. So, but then I found out, I didn't even find out till later that Shine is their very last song in their entire concert set. And they only briefly mentioned me, but that was cool. And I was like, wow. And I didn't even know that. And then I looked at this one guy who was watching the concert with me, and I said, I didn't know this song was going to be last. He said, oh, of course. He says, I've been to their other concerts, and they always play this song last, Shine. And I was like, oh, well,
Makes
how would I
sense.
know? How would I know?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was my first ever concert. I got to see them perform, and then I ended up going ahead and buying their, uh, you know, multi hits album, their 7 Year Itch, they called it, for
It's
Collective
interesting
Soul.
with bands like that, like you come to find, like especially if they have like a big hit single, like they're usually if there's a band that has like a number of those over the years, they get a little more leeway. But if they have like Collective Soul, shines like the one they have to play that song at every show. So of course it's
Every
going to be
show.
last, and they're probably dreading it. Like, and you come to find like that's usually the story. Any song that gets super popular and gets requested at every show, the band inevitably is like, that's one of our least favorite songs just because we're required to play it every time, and
Exactly. Yeah, I recall one time I sang the song for like, I think either my second or third time in karaoke. And somebody came up to me later and said, oh, that was a wonderful job. You did a great thing, but please, in the future, don't sing that one again. I've heard it too much. That's what one of my friends said. I said, "Oh, okay," So I think it was probably my last time I ever sang because one of my friends came forward and said, "Hey, I loved it, but please don't." He says you
so
can
yeah,
sing.
I but on that note though, Collective Soul opening for Creed was one of my that was my very first like arena rock show. It was like I had seen like Tower of Power and a couple other bands before that, like at the fair, but that was like the first time I really went to the stadium and saw rock and roll, and it was
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, in 2012, I went to see. I went to see the Cool in the Gang, and the Cool in the Gang were opening for Van Halen, and I had never seen Van Halen in a concert ever before, or Cool in the Gang. So I was hoping that some of the original members of Cool and Gang, I hoped against hope, but they only had the two brothers that were left, the ones that play the guitars and everything, rhythm and electrical and everything, and that's it. I mean, they had a brand new lead singer, they had a brand new drummer, they had a brand new bassist, all this stuff, and only the two brothers. So that's all that were left. And what's ironic is that back in the day, Van Halen, when they were starting out, they were the opening band, and Cool and the Gang were the premier band. after them. So I thought it was so ironic, first of all, that Kool and the Gang's opening for them. But then when you get Van Halen that comes out, there's David Lee Roth. The man is in his like late 60s right now, and he looked like he was 30. He's doing all these leg kicks, and he's got this whole uh, wooden platform where he's got like sawdust and on it stuff, so he can move around, slide around, do all sorts of stuff, which is insane. And the man's like as he's in his 60s doing these things. And then you see Alex in the back, and Alex is playing drums. You see Eddie, and Eddie's playing his guitar. And then you see, oh my gosh, who's that? Well, that's not Michael Anthony. I'm like, somebody asked that, and I was like, no, 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 no. That's Wolfie. That's Wolfgang Van Halen. That's Eddie's kid who's playing, guitar. He's playing the bass part, which Michael Anthony, if he was a part of the band, and wasn't because he decided to go off and hang with Sammy Hagar and his band. So, Chickenfoot, which is a weird name in itself. So, we're all watching Wolfie playing. He's doing a great job, of course. I mean, come on, you're born from Eddie Van Halen, who just happens to be one of the greatest guitarists in the world. And I'm like, and he was doing really good. And Alex did a great set of his own for 15 minutes. Everybody was in awe, ooh, ah. Then Eddie Van Halen went into an extended part of his Eruption, uh, which some people consider the greatest guitar solo ever. And he just went into 15 minutes of absolute bliss. Everybody's listening intently. There's not a dry eye in the house, no coughing, no stuttering, nothing. And this man he just destroyed every guitarist known to man, even Jimi Hendrix. I mean, it was the most eclectic, wonderful, awesome. Any word you can describe to denote greatness was in that 15-minute set he did, just by himself. I mean, there wasn't. It seemed like there wasn't anybody else in the room, and he's playing, and it just amazing. I'm always intrigued and awestruck by guitars, any kind of guitar, playing everything. So that was a great experience. But then, of course, he died, and I was just like,
Yeah,
just,
definitely one of those things where I think it's more powerful in the moment. There's people if you're at that show like a Woodstock
oh yeah,
or something like that. Like I remember when I saw Tool. Um,
cool, wow,
yeah, back in 2010,
yeah,
2011, and it just totally changed my perspective on live performances. And it was just like nosebleed seats, but you didn't really need to. You just kind of had to be there and experience the music live. Because I was never a huge Tool fan.
yeah.
But what seeing them that night really made me appreciate their act and what they do live as well as in recordings.
Yeah, and their speciality. Yeah, Tool is a great band. I agree with you. Uh, I'm proud to say that I got to witness a band I started following in the early '80s, The Police. Okay, Sting to me is the greatest musical songwriter artist. He's done all sorts of different genres of music and just absolutely. He even did an opera. I mean, it didn't do well, but he did it okay. The only thing he's never done is polka. He's never, ever done anything with like Weird Al Yankovic or anything like that. But that would be cool if he did. I mean, I would definitely I'd buy the album or I'd go and download the song if he even gave it a shot. I mean, even my Suzanne's favorite band, AC/DC, did the Hokey Pokey thing. And I was like, well, that's insane. But, but she went to a concert one time and they had Justin Timberlake, the Rolling Stones, and AC/DC. And she said they practically threw Justin Timberlake off the stage with, refuse and throwing things at him. Then the Rolling Stones came on. And the Rolling Stones were still pretty good, but not as good because everybody was screaming and crying for AC/DC to come on. And then they did, and they finished out the rest of the night, the concert. And of course, my wife was very happy. That's
Okay,
very bad.
so AC, I'm gonna unpopular opinion as a rock and roller. AC/DC, in my opinion, and I've never seen them live, but as
Right.
far as their status in the rock scene, I've always felt they were kind of overrated. Like, I felt, they were a bit too repetitive with their formula, but I know a lot of people disagree with me there. Yeah, but I always have to. And then people say that my guitar solos kind of sound like Angus, so I'm like, okay, I didn't
Hey,
try to
that's
make that happen. It's a fluke, but
yeah. Well, it just happened that way, but it's a compliment. If somebody feels like you're playing like Angus Young, well, no, there you go. Uh, in my singing, when I was able to hit high notes, my wife heard me do Thunderstruck, and I actually sang it so close to the song, uh, which is part of Maximum Overdrive movie, and it's in the soundtrack. Then you hear it on the radio, and I was singing Brian Johnson's part, and of that because he's the lead on that song. And everybody just gave me a round of applause. They stood up and they were all in shock, and they're going, "This guy just sang ACDC, without an incident in droppage of note or vocal range or anything." And I was just blown away because I didn't anticipate anybody would think that I sang it so well. But then my wife gives me a huge kiss and hug, love, and everything, and she says, "Look, honey, everybody's standing up. They're applauding you. What's going on?" I said, "I don't know." I was, I just sang stuff. I just sang Thunderstruck, and I'm like, everybody went crazy. So it's unfortunate. I don't really have that high note anymore, but I actually sang online karaoke. There's a guy named Jedi Bill that does 797 that does online karaoke like 4 nights a week. And the last night he allowed me to come on and I sang, and they all said I did a great job. So I was like, wow, yeah. It's unfortunate we don't have very many what you call like karaoke bars or that kind of a bar that would feature music like that. Some do have live bands that come in occasionally, but not anything that would be like in reference to open mic night or anything like that. They just don't exist anymore. I think it was probably because of the COVID mostly, but yeah, it's just a shame. I really enjoy singing. I really do.
yeah, I've heard of a couple of those locally down here where they call it live band karaoke, but I think usually the band's kind of limited in the selection of what they can play. I don't know. I haven't been to any of them, but I've seen a couple, but it's not as common as you would think.
Yeah,
Especially with, there's a lot of cover bands in Northern California as well. So you're like, well, you'd think those bands would probably be doing something like that, but
well, yeah, you think they would play like a lot of Journey, a lot of Train. Those are just two bands that I know offhand that come from the Bay Area. Uh, they could play some older music too. Uh, like Jefferson Airplane or Starship or anything like that, and people would be able to reminisce and enjoy it. But yeah, um, the thing about
but
I
I
just want to
also
say,
understand
yeah,
that.
go ahead. Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead,
I,
man.
I was just gonna say, unless you have like a book of like popular music or something, you just read the notation. Like, it's for a lot of bands, especially if you're already rehearsing a regular set, and then to kind of take songs on call as a separate thing takes a
Yeah.
bit more skill, a bit more rehearsal time. That a lot of people just aren't really equipped for that unless you're making a living doing it full time.
That's true. Getting back to my friend Bobby Cook for a moment, what was unique was that he had a book, right? Not just karaoke books, mind you, but he had a few books for for us band members ourselves that we could play along, and he had the notes in there, listed and everything. He didn't have to, put out like a whole, printed thing of notes and just, the lyrics. What he did was he put the lyrics in in this special book, and then he had the notes where they changed the chords, on the guitar, where they changed the beats on the drum, all of that. He was a genius. I mean, he had everything planned out so that if there was a song that they were going to do in karaoke, and it was a song cover that he wasn't aware of or didn't know how to do, he just asked one of us because we were all knowledgeable. We said, "Well, you know, I could sing along with this person, and you could play a little guitar because you may know some of the notes in the song, if you've heard it yourself." Other times, I would just Danny would play, and I'd go over to the drums, and I'd just do a little bit of steady little drumming, and they would tell me don't play too hard. And I'm like, okay, and I'm just trying to keep it to myself, and play in rhythm, and and it worked out. I mean, we never had a bad show. Our best venue was what it was called, simply the venue. It was in downtown Scottsdale, Arizona, and
Oh
we
yeah, I've
played
heard
on
of
a
that
big
one.
stage. Yeah, we played on a big stage. Uh, we went over to the Mason Jar, which is near Phoenix, and played I think once there. Uh, but we just kind of hung out in a few bars, and the people accepted the concept, and I went to a few of my favorite bars that were in my area, and where I was living in Northeast Scottsdale. We played there, so it was fun. Like I said, I did it for about 7 years. I was excited. It was just a nice, separate gig to do. I worked during the day, and then at night I go out and when I could, and performed and practiced with them, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So on the note of the set list, I this used to drive my band members crazy, and I've gotten better about it. So I used to be the type. I don't know if you've experienced this, where when we'd have a set of original songs or whatever songs you're playing, I would change it up for every show. So if we were playing, two shows back to back, somewhere in the middle, I would, rearrange a few songs, and that would always make my band members livid. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
I am
Um,
familiar with this. In fact, it's a good point that you made, Trusty, because Bobby, if my memory still serves correctly, there wasn't a single show that was repeated with the same song every time. It always had a different opening song to start. We always experimented with a few different covers because we always wanted to be the band. We wanted to be the ultimate band that could put karaoke and live music on the map in Arizona. That's how good Bobby was. And he was just trying to put it out there. And he always made sure that every show was going to be unique and different. When I came on the scene, he was already just getting his concept started. And it was starting to get, play around the valley. And people were starting to notate it. They saw something mentioned in the paper and they said, oh, wow, okay, so this might be a brand new concept. It might be cool. But when I came on the scene, I only came on because Bobby was looking for another singer, and he had heard me some nights ago, at a place I went down to there in Scottsdale, Old Town, and he heard me sing at one of his shows, and then I went to one of his other shows that was over, I think it was in Deer Valley, and then sang there, and I was just being, I thought if I could visit him a few times and visit their show and put in my songs and see what covers they could play and everything, I thought that'd be cool. And well, he hired me. He said, look, whenever you have available time, just come and join us. Here's our venues, here's where we're going to go, blah 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 blah. The rest is history. But yeah, he always changed it up, and we were never upset because we said, well, we know so much songs. He had a vast library. He really did. He had such a library of music, that he could use for the karaoke version, and a bunch of music that he could use for live play. And yeah, he always changed it up, but we never got upset about it. We understood. We were like, we want the show to be different every night, but we want it to be fun. That's all we wanted to do. So yeah, we were cool with it.
yeah, and I think that again goes to show like the investment, the energy that people put into music, into learning a set, and the repetition of it. And once you kind of throw a wrench in that repetition, okay, now there's a little bit more work involved,
Yeah,
and everybody else, um, that's why I always felt, early on as a musician, it had to be my first job.
yeah,
Anything else was my side job. But
exactly.
then it becomes very difficult to survive that way. And so for anybody who's doing music as a side job, you're like, I don't have, time for all this. Can't we just do the same set list? But I think it's not as engaging for audiences, especially if they start to follow you for a time and they're like, oh, well, this is the same thing I heard last week or the week before or whatever it was.
Do you have okay, let me ask you this really funny question. Do you actually have groupies, like people that follow your band uh religiously and like go to where you perform and everything?
In a sense, I do. I mean, well, both of the bands respectively have different groups of people who follow them. I have people who just kind of follow me personally. Um, but as far as like actually going out and gigging over the last couple of years, that's become more and more sparse. But those people still tend to follow me a bit online. So they're pretty up on what I put out, and offering me criticisms and things like that. But the most common criticism is that we should be out playing in public more. So
Well, yeah, it's not your fault because of the the whole COVID-19 pandemic and everything. It shut down a lot of places. Uh, my dad said that if I ever came back to visit them, and I wanted to go to some place I'd been to before, they either aren't there or they don't do things like that anymore. So he said you wouldn't even recognize this place if you came back to see us, because
yeah,
of
a
COVID.
lot of the bars that we used to play at, around like the Sacramento area and stuff, they're doing mostly karaoke shows now, and the people who promote there have all changed since we were last, booked. So now I have to get to know a whole different group of music promoters and things like that. So
Yeah. Was there any studios, any music companies or studios that wanted to promote you and put you in a recording studio and all that stuff?
no, I never really caught on to all of that. I had a couple of companies like reach out to me on social media, but
Uh
of
huh.
course, they I don't know. I'm pretty sketchy about it. I played with a band a few years ago that signed a record contract, and was doing a national tour, and the guy who fronted that band ended up just in a mountain of debt. And they still play, but they never finished the tour. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so that was obviously not a good endeavor. So I kind of learned vicariously from that experience, not to just sign any contract that comes my way. But I've never
Right.
really been about the record deal. So I always try to just book my own shows through word of mouth and stuff.
Yeah, I had one experience like that, which is why I asked you because uh, well, okay, like I said, I've been singing since 1996, so I guess this was just about the year 2000 or 2001, 2002, somewhere around the 3 year time frame. And in all that time, I only got one serious offer to take my voice and record it. And it was a lady, she came up to me and she said, well, she says, I run one of the local studios in the valley. I can't remember the title of it now, but at the time I recognized it where she said she worked from. And I said, well, so what do you do? She says, well, I'm one of the soundboard people, and I heard your voice, and I thought, my boss could definitely, have you come in and record some, music and use your voice and, as a voiceover, something like that. And I said, well, that'd be cool. I said, but, wouldn't I have to pay for my session? And she said, well, yeah, she said it's probably going to be oh, I don't know. She said probably about 200, maybe $300 at the most to pay for a recording session, so you could come in and record yourself, and and we'll see what we can do with your voice. Because I really love it. She says I really would like you to be in there. And I said, well, unfortunately, at that time my budget wasn't the greatest, so so I said to her, I said, well, that's really nice of you, and I'm really honored that you think I could help your music studio, but I just didn't have the fundage to do it at the time, and I really regret it now because I could have probably saved up something and done it. But in the overall estimation, I told a good friend of mine about it, and he said, "Well, they could have used your voice for other purposes, and then they could have just said to you, thanks for coming, but you're probably not the voice we're looking for." And then later on, they would play my voice, use it in a song or use it on a commercial or something like that. And that would be their way of saying, hey, we don't have to pay you because now you're not under contract or anything, but we do have your voice, which is your property. So yeah, that's why I never got involved with that. But
Well, yeah, that's really shady. I
it
mean,
is.
I felt fortunate for a long time because, and I still feel fortunate. A lot of my, whenever I've been out playing gigs, usually it's like I said, through local promoters. A lot of these people are doing, the work at a deficit. They really just want to go and hang out at a show, and they know some local bands, and they get a gig. They're like, hey, if you want to, put these bands together and make a flyer, cool, we'll pay you, maybe a couple $100 to work for the night or something. And they do it that way. And then inevitably these gigs kind of fall through because the bands always expect to get paid, right? And so
Yeah,
that's always been an issue. It's like, oh, well, how many people did you actually bring into the venue tonight? And then they start doing this math, and some band always falls short. The other bands don't want to make up that deficit. So if the promoter is decent, usually they look at the band who didn't draw the crowd and go, hey, I'm going to give you a cut of my money, just to try to make sure that you get something out of this deal for your work.
yeah,
And so then the promoter's getting screwed, and it goes full circle. But it's like, I also have experienced on the other end. I had one promoter well, this is several years ago now, who I got into a feud with because they stole. Basically, myself and a few other musicians came up with an idea for a charity event. It was supposed to be a charity event um, in Sacramento for the SPCA, and we
wow,
went and did this charity event,
yeah,
and it was pretty well received. But we had some issues with booking the thing. The promoters showed up. Um, there were pretty much some questionable dealings that went on there, and she and I had a disagreement. So I went, okay, well, if you ever want to revisit this, let's discuss it in the future. And a couple of years went by, and she never contacted me. She contacted a couple other people that were involved with the event, and tried to do a second annual type of thing. And I
and
reached out to her and I went, hey, what's going on? Why are you using this thing that I put together,
yeah.
and just cutting me out of this whole deal?
The deal,
And
yeah, she made you like a pariah. She made you like the pariah, like you were,
yeah, and the
yeah,
other
like
people,
it
it was
didn't
interesting
exist.
because
Yeah,
I made the poor choice of like blasting her on Facebook and all of that stuff. But at the same time, the other musicians who were around were like, no, we've all dealt with this. We understand where you're coming from, but just let it go.
right,
And at the
right.
time, I was like, I'm not letting this go. Like, you know, if F her, this is bullshit, you know, and, uh, and so I've still been dealing with the fallout from that because
Yeah,
apparently I was just supposed to keep my mouth shut on this one. But, I still feel like, okay, I may have taken an extreme course of action, but this was definitely a very unprofessional thing to do.
yeah.
And,
And then, you know what? I applaud you because you actually did this on principle, right? So it was the principle of the thing. How could you not like respond? I mean, you know, uh, I'm curious if she had actually talked to other promoters in her line and said to them, "Well, I don't think we can trust this band because, they did this to me or something like that." Do you recall that happening or anything?
Well, all I know was the first time we had booked the show,
Yeah,
um, she had neglected her end of the bargain, right? We'd started putting this together, gotten a bunch of people on board, and I said, "Hey, does this setup sound good?" And it was kind of a festival. And then she went off the grid because she supposedly she went on vacation after that, right?
yeah,
And so, a few weeks went by where I'm messaging her. I'm like, "Hey, this person's interested. This person's interested. What do you think? What do you think?" And I'm not hearing anything back. And so now we're, 3 weeks from the show date or whatever. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I haven't heard back from you. So I'm going to go ahead and okay this because we previously discussed it." And then she comes back the following week saying, "Oh, actually, we can't have this band. We can't do this. Da, da, da." And I was like, "Okay, well, now I've already confirmed all these people. What is there a reason for this?" And she goes, "No, and it's not okay for you to be making these types of arrangements." And I was like, "I've been messaging you for weeks. I've been sending you, like there I've got all the evidence of all this correspondence. You just
yeah.
haven't." And so we went through that whole thing, and I did the professional thing. I addressed, the people I needed to address, and apologized for stepping out of my lane and did all that. So I was
Right,
like, okay, I did the best I could. I'm not the person who's supposed to be putting this together, but
right.
basically I was.
Well,
So
you
that
were
was the way
because
the first one went down. So when she did the
sure,
second one, I just felt like it was totally underhanded. You know what I mean?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, you did all you could, and she just like basically threw you under a bus. that was that's what she did. That's what she did. Yeah, that's not cool at all at any level of what a promoter would do like that. We found that in our band, and then for a very short time, I also performed with a jazz band, but that didn't last long. So I won't mention them anymore. But with Bobby, it's like we knew that we could book certain nights without having to worry about uh, cle- uh what's the word, coercion or anybody like stepping on toes. We the last thing we wanted to do was say, for example, there was a bar that does country music that we got to perform at a couple times, which wasn't far from where I lived, and this country thing down the road and everything. And we knew that they had a live country music band, just a live country music band that would perform there. Say like maybe on the weekends or something. So then Bobby knew. He said, "Well, what we could do is come midweek, and we could put in a couple nights here with you guys, and get people to come out on the weekdays, which normally is slow times for bars. Is getting anybody out there on weekdays. As I'm sure you're aware. And that's what we did is we started getting people like on a Wednesday night or Thursday night. We would perform, do our thing. People enjoyed it. They told their friends. They told their friends. They said, "Hey, this is a new thing they're doing, and it's great. You get to participate, you get to sing, you get to do whatever you want." We did that for a little while. We just had those 2 nights to ourselves. We had no collision with other bands, or we didn't step on any toes. And then their country rock or country music band would come in and play like the whole weekend. And sometimes those country members wanted us to come and watch their show. So I went with Bobby and Danny and one other friend of ours in the band, and the four of us we went saw one of their performances, and I thought that's pretty awesome, you know. And they even had one of us or a couple of us on a couple songs just go up there if we knew country, and we went up there and sang along with them. I thought, wow, that's nice. It's just really cool people like that, musicians are like a family, and when they bond together, it's magical. I just enjoyed being able to sing with some great people in my life, and yeah, if I had to do it all again, I would. I would do it the same thing I did. Um, at one time, though, it's difficult, like you said, because when you're gigging, because you don't make as much money sometimes when you do it. And at one time, I was working Safeway full time as a cashier. I started to become one of the head cashiers there, and then I would go to my Bobby's. He had a restaurant that he co-owned with someone, and I would go there, and I would do either on a Wednesday night, I would do jamioke, or not jamioke, sorry, regular karaoke uh, with the bar there, or I go on a Sunday night and do it. Mostly it was on a Sunday because I had to work some Wednesday nights. But I would go ahead and do the regular karaoke on that Sunday along with my full time job, and then I also when Bobby got together his band and had me say are you going to be able to make it? And I said, yeah, most of the time I did. So they had us set up where we were going to go play and perform. And so I'd get dressed and look really nice. And I'd go up there and, you know, we would all get a little, stipend. Not much money at the end of our gig, though the venue did pay us our biggest gig money. So that was nice. That was later on, not till later on though. But, suffice to say, we all got a little bit. And, well, some of that was used for drinking and stuff. So it was like, yeah, maybe we got free beer or something, but not really because we had to pay for our own drinks. And, but that was where I was, working three different things at once, and my tip jar wasn't always full every time I worked because I only worked like 1 or 2 nights a week. So it was tough. It was, but like I said, I was just thankful I was working a full time job at the time, or otherwise I would have been like not making it, and I probably wouldn't have been able to pay my rent or anything else that was going on. So
Yeah, some parts of me miss, I miss those days, but obviously, it didn't work for me. But, I was living it for a while, especially in my 20s. I would, I was working part time, and, you know, I had, I had already had my kids and stuff like that.
right,
And I would play at least twice a week with my bands. Um, yeah, I was in two or three bands consistently throughout my 20s, different revolving acts that I was doing. And and so I was playing all the time. I scheduled my work life around my music, and I was
yeah,
oblivious. I was like, hey, if I have a gig on Thursday night, I don't know what to tell you. You're gonna have to find somebody else. And my job kind of kept accommodating me. Of course, I got my hours cut, and that was, financially devastating. And we never
oh
made
boy,
too much off of the shows, but I was able to keep it going for a while. And there's like a video of me playing, a show in Sacramento, where I showed up to the bar, and I was like, well, I thought it was an all ages show. So my 3-year-old daughter's running across the room, while there's a mosh pit going on, and
oh
I'm on
god,
stage. My ex is filming.
oh man,
I've got like three of my best friends in the crowd. So,
oh jeez,
and and that promoter chick who I was talking about earlier, she's in there kind of running after my daughter, and she said to me later, "What, are you crazy? Bring your kid to a punk rock show?" And I was like, "No, it's just the way we do it. This is my lifestyle right now."
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I just recently, a few months ago, I have a friend. Her name is, I think I mentioned her to you before. Her name's Jennifer Crutchfield, and her husband Chris, both are Christian artists, but they also respectfully follow the Jewish religion. And she has a little daughter named Zeev, and she's like 3 years old. It's a African American and Swedish. Uh, Jennifer's a beautiful, wonderful Swedish blonde, and she married a wonderful, African American Chris, and Now they share a daughter, Zeev, who's a beautiful little girl, and They went to do a concert. Well, not really a concert, more of a oh, what do you call it? Uh, a sit-in, okay, like an acoustic session, and they had one guy that was playing electric keyboard and stuff in the back, and then or guitar, and then Jennifer was singing, and I'm watching the video she sent us, and Steve is just running all over the place. And I mean, there's people. This is in a bar and a restaurant, so you got this little girl who's running all over the floor, And Chris can't always be there as dad, to try to keep her out of danger because he's filming the event. This is on YouTube. This is on Facebook, and he's filming it for friends and family and stuff. And so he's got to do what he's doing. And I think Jennifer might have had one or two friends that were trying to help out, to keep Steve out of danger. But she was rambunctious. She was all over the place. and I'm and I know what I was saying when I was watching it. I'm seeing from way up here in Canada. I'm like, Steve, don't do that. Steve, watch that table. Steve, don't run into mom. She's performing. It was insane, dude. I don't know how in the heck she got through it, but finally Dad was able to like corral her and put her safely in a corner or something. And I just felt for her at that point. But apparently it went well. I guess she did well, and that was actually the beginning of when they were going to make their trip to Charlotte to move there. I didn't even realize that. I thought they just went there to do the gig, and next thing I know, they were moving out of the hills outside of Hollywood, the Hollywood Hills area. They had just sold their apartment or given it back, and then they're trying to build a house in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's where they are right now. Is they're living with friends and doing gigs here and there. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, my aunt and uncle from nearby, they recently moved out to South Carolina. My dad's talking about going out there. So I guess a lot of people from California go into that area, from what I
I
hear right
guess
now.
in the Carolinas, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this one guy we were talking to. Uh, um, his name was Sterling. Well, he calls himself Sterling, and he uses the background from Seinfeld with his name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he's a guy who's in Colombia. I'm guessing near Bogota, the capital.
You
And
say Colombia or Venezuela? I don't remember.
he
I thought
said
he's
he told me Colombia. He told us Colombia. That's what I was
okay.
under.
I might have gotten that wrong, and I mixed it up.
Oh no, but what we were talking about was that Venezuela is supposed to be like a partner country to Colombia, helping them with the crime scene, with the drug cartels, things like that. But they got to the point where they just said, you know what, just handle it yourself, and we know your Colombian, police force is pretty much corrupt, and they don't do a lot, and we're not going to help you, so they kept to themselves. That's pretty much what was going on. And he said that he wanted to go to Columbia, South Carolina, to or Charleston. I'm sorry, not Columbia, it's
Yeah.
Charleston. He wanted to go to Charleston, South Carolina, to become mayor, and I said, uh, yeah, that would be nice, but it's going to take more than your question when you said $2,000. It's going to take more than $2,000 to do that. And to move. I mean, to get to get yourself an American passport again, because you've been living down there in South America for all this time, and you need to get that.
Well, I mean, it is a natural citizen and probably be pretty easy for him to get back. But yeah, that 2 grand is not going very far once you get here.
No, he said he'd like do the poster boards, things like initially to start himself, and I said, yeah.
My understanding is if you're born here, we have a pretty open-ended agreement with South America and well, Latin America, as it were, whatever, Mexico, South America, where they tend to like just let U.S. citizens like go because they're like whatever, fuck it, you know. And we kind of do the same with them. Like if you're trying to go back because nobody wants to deal with the immigration issues.
Yeah, well, I also found out because of COVID, well, now there's more tensions at the border between the United States and Canada. Like if I try to go back now, I unfortunately decided to let my United States passport, run out. It got expired, but I heard that you could get it renewed, here in Canada. I said, well, that's fine. I probably
Oh,
could
so
do that.
you don't have dual citizenship? You have to have a
Well, you can if you want to get dual citizenship. You have to first acquire the passport of Canada, then you can go get your U.S. passport renewed if you're planning to travel, between each country, anytime soon. If it's an emergency or something like that, but it isn't at this time. There's no reason to go down there, and and I got plenty of time. I mean, it's not like I'm you know, a terrorist or an immigrant that might be on the radar, so to speak. So, I'm just a normal American citizen who agreed to move here to be with my wife, and I haven't regretted it since. So,
See, I was looking for Canadian citizenship back in 2015, 2016.
yeah,
Um, and basically, I talked to an attorney up there, and they were like, well, the only way we can really get you granted, citizenship is if you know somebody up here, um, or you have a job offer up here. Like it was
right,
one of those two. And I was
right.
like, well, I don't really, I only knew a couple people online, but that didn't really count. So,
Well, when we moved here, back from where we were in Arizona, and we moved up here, back into Canada. At the time, I told the border guard, well, first of all, I don't plan on going to school because I already have a college degree of some kind. Secondly, I don't plan to work because I just quit. I just walked or gave my 2 weeks and officially retired from Safeway and retired from work in general. I just didn't want to work anymore. I was tired. I'd worked 35 years of my life since I was 17, and I was exhausted. And well, until I found out later I had diabetes or whatever. That's neither here or there. I was just exhausted. I said, I'm walking away. So the first 6 months he says, well, don't go to school, don't go to work, and I said, don't worry, I won't be working. I won't be going to school to take courses or anything, because that would have changed my eligibility just to be able to walk into Canada, with just my passport. So plus my wife had received a restriction when we left to go down to visit my folks. Uh, she had received a restriction at the border saying she could only be there for a certain amount of time. Well, when she came back, the border guard at the Canadian border guard removed the restriction. Said, "What's this doing on here?" He says, "Look, I'm just going to get rid of this thing. You have your passport back. You be fine. You don't have to worry about this restriction." And, they got rid of that for her. And well, that was basically it. So they told me that after 6 months, uh, you have to declare that you have to show some evidence that you moved, that you're living in Canada, whatever. Well, I showed somebody, uh, when I got my first medical examination done, I showed them proof that yes, people in the states now know I live here. My parents sent me, something from what would used to be Bank of America, and they sent me a notation if something was going down in a court case or something, and it had my full actual Canadian address on it that I live with here with Suzanne and our cats. So that was proof right there. And they said, well, once you get that proof, they said you need to wait 3 full years before you can actually start to declare. Well, unfortunately, the 3 full years ran into COVID-19. So when they, shut down all these government buildings and offices and said the only thing you can do is either call us on the phone, to make an appointment, which means you're exposing. You don't know what's going on with that. When you're exposing yourself with all your information and whatever you have on you, your identity basically. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I said, I want to come into the office and do it. They said, well, we can't do that right now. And I said, well, I know why, but I mean, is there a way you can get around it? I said, I got a mask. I'll put my mask on. I'll just walk in. I'll make an appointment, walk in, get my stuff done, and that's it. It's done. And they just wouldn't accommodate me. So, you know, and I've still been in a holding pattern because of it, because of the pandemic. But it's supposed to be going down now, from what I heard. So hopefully this year I'll be able to walk in there and you know, and all I want is just a Canadian passport. That's all I want. Because I live here
Interesting.
now. This is my home. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that we have such different standards. Like here, we've most people, it's masked by choice. All the in-person appointments have resumed and stuff for the most part. I mean, we're like business as usual, although we still get sporadic news reports of outbreaks, and then
right, right.
but it doesn't it doesn't seem to be nearly as bad as the initial reports were
Yeah.
telling us.
Right.
I want to welcome Halsey. I see Halsey over there. Hello, hello.
Oh, who just came in? Oh, um, I can't read without my glasses, and it's late.
It's a Halcyonic Kaiju. Yeah.
Halcyonic Kaiju. Oh, hi, Halcyonic Kaiju. Uh, are you interested in joining our chat? You can if you want. The link's right above you.
I think she is witnessing at this point, so that's okay.
That's okay.
She
Yeah,
knows
no,
she's welcome.
yeah. Oh, she's definitely welcome. What was I saying? Oh, okay. So when it comes to Canada, see, I think what happened is when the pandemic first hit, we didn't know what it was. My wife and I both went through it. I mean, we both went through 3 week periods where, one point we think we're dying, and number two we're just like, freaking out. We don't know what's going on. And then it's like one person after the other. First it was my wife, then it was me. So we just, we went through it. Eventually we got all our shots, all our boosters, everything that was required. There was another recent one I think that just came up, and we said, no, no, we're okay. We got it all taken care of. But like I said, I think that when the pandemic really did hit and it was lasting for a while, a lot of those offices closed because they got paranoid. They didn't want the virus to spread throughout the offices and stuff. And I understood. No, I totally I get it. I understood why they were doing it, and like I said, I mean I've been here 5 years now, and or over 5 years now, and I still don't have my passport of either country, and I'm still hearing this in my ears. My mother telling me get dual citizenship. I'm saying, why, mother? Is it like you're thinking I'm going to come back and just move back into you know the United
Well,
States
yeah, I
like
think
it
that's
never existed?
the
Yeah,
idea is just the freedom of travel. I think that comes with that. But yeah, I don't know. And around here, it's weird the social dynamic, because I get harassed more often for wearing a mask than not wearing a mask.
yeah,
Um, which I think it's interesting depending on where you go how that thing works.
yeah. My wife and I, because Toronto is such a diverse Canadian city, and there are so many different races that live here, different nations and so forth. I think it's just because of the offices of the mayor, say like the mayor of Toronto, and then of course the premier, Trudeau, that lives over there in Ottawa, and I think it's just a question of uh, you know how safe do they want to be. uh, my wife and I, once in a while, we'll go out and we'll wear a mask. It's just the It's just being cautious. That's and nobody thinks twice. If they look at you, they kind of look at you at first like you're weird or something, but then they realize why. So then they don't say much. Uh, but then if you go into a place that it's just you and my wife and I that go into a place and it's just us and maybe what two or three other people that are wearing masks of some kind, but the rest of them are not, then you get worried. You're like, well, they just shrugged it off. Like you look at the people without the mask. You said they just shrugged it off because they don't care anymore. So they think it's bypassed now them. It's gone by them or whatever. And then, like you said, every once in a while there's an outbreak. Out of nowhere, and it comes, and but most people don't anticipate that, or they don't expect it, or they just don't care. Just yeah, they'll think it's life as usual, and they'll just go. They'll keep living their lives. So
Yeah, or a couple of my friends have had the long haul where they were sick with it for weeks. Like I was lucky that I didn't get that brand of it. I was sick for like 2 or 3 days and I was good. But a couple of my friends were down for the count for weeks, and once you take that into account, the time off work and whatever else is going on, it's just time you can't afford to lose.
yeah, it's quite scary because you look at like there was a few times where we walk into a store or something, and you expect a lot of people. When you walk in there and you see maybe what less than 10 people shopping, and of course either they're all wearing masks or maybe even just only half of them are, but the other half aren't. But you see that and you're like going, wow, it's just uh, yeah, driven a lot of people paranoid and scared, and they don't know, and I mean, you know, even they've said that the mask, even if you wear a mask, it's not 100% guaranteed you're not going to get the virus. You're definitely going to get it somehow. You know, may the
I do
percentage
feel
might be a
like we're
little less.
just we're getting into a cultural state where we're more just normalizing wearing masks at any time though now.
Sure.
A lot of other countries do this, like during flu outbreak, whatever it is, they just all put on face masks just to double down, and or latex gloves or whatever it is.
Right, right. Yeah, hospitals did that here. In fact, what they did was uh, they specifically told you if you're going to come to a hospital, don't bring your own mask. We've got masks available. And as soon as you walk in the door, if you're wearing your own mask, but they tell you to take it off, they'll tell you immediately, put on this latex mask and put on the thing that's laid there for you so that you can walk around the hospital. They were being very cautious, they took a lot of precautions. They really did, which was
But
amazing, but at the same time, it was.
do you also think that, like, as Americans, we come from kind of a pro germ culture, where it's like we have sayings like, if you drop food on the floor, pick it up, they say, well, oh, it's got a little bit of dirt. Well, God made dirt, dirt won't hurt, or something like that, or like these weird aphorisms that we have. The other cultures are like, no, we wouldn't do that, and we're like, oh, we're gonna eat this nastiness right here. And, that's still good food.
Yeah, don't you remember? You might have remembered this, but my mother said if anything hits the floor, you've got at least 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds at the most, before you get all the germs and stuff on it. I think then somebody raised that a bar a little bit and said, I think within the first 8 seconds that something hits the ground, that you're eating or
Yeah, it's like
something.
riding a bull. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you have to pick it up off the floor before that timer expires. Well, how would you know if you're like in the middle of eating something and it goes down and you don't have a stopwatch? You're not thinking about that phrase. You're just kind of like eating and you're like, what are you going to do with the stuff that's on the floor? Well, I hope to God that there's a dog down there or a cat or something that's just eating it for me, and I won't even have to worry about it.
But
'Cause
on the other end of that is like grandpa telling you that, there's some starving child in Africa who would gladly,
Ethiopia,
eat that
Ethiopia,
corn cob you're about to waste or something, because it has a few kernels on it.
exactly. Yeah, my mother said Ethiopia for us. It's like it's ironic. It's the
Yeah.
cradle of humanity, and yet my mother's telling me they're starving kids in Ethiopia and all these other places. I said, yes, mother, I know where they are. Okay, I know they're homeless. I know they don't have the necessary food or water around, and they're dying. Like some somebody came up with a figure that there's a African child that dies like every 30 seconds, from hunger or poverty or whatever. Uh, I honestly don't know if that's true, but
It's
just
because
from
they've
what I
been
recall
playing
from what
those commercials for on TV all this time. What are they? They're
the Christian organizations, yeah.
yeah, they are a Christian organization. I can't remember there's a couple of them, but the big one,
There's a
Christian
world
Children's
hunger.
Fund, is that the one? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
Christian Children's Fund, and then there's the World Health Organization, which runs a few ads that talk about the hunger situation and the poverty and all that, and they don't get decent schooling. And there's no such thing as schools to teach them or teachers or anything, and they think that some of the
Oh,
salaries of people who want to be teachers there, men or women, and just to teach these kids. But there's just so much. I look at them. I used to watch them and cry. Yeah, I had a little tear in my eye. I'm not totally inhuman. I'm not an inhuman person. I do have feelings,
well,
but
I believe
at
that
the same time, I'm like,
these.
how is it possible? It's an overwhelming problem, and it's not just in Africa. It's everywhere. There's homelessness everywhere. There's poverty everywhere. I kept questioning, like, look, why are you giving us these ads when in your very own backyard you've got people who are dying of poverty, dying of homelessness, dying of no companionship or relationships or anything. I said, why can't you take care of them first? And then I mean, I didn't want to be selfish, but I thought, you know why don't you take care of the your country first and then worry about the others later? You had a lot of people that had no homes to stay in, live in boxes and all this other stuff. I don't think you'd recognize San Francisco anymore. Somebody said that it's like a homeless shelter, and somebody called it an oversized giant urinal. I'm like, wow. I'm like, how'd that happen? I mean, I used to live there. Come on, you know, just scary shit. And I mean, my parents, they got this place they call the Zone, and it's a huge area where they had homeless people and families and everything living, and now they're drawing them all out of there. And the first evidence of it was about a month or so ago. I was watching a local news station I was familiar with in the state, and they were showing an actual area where they took all the homeless out of there, all their stuff, all their whatever worldly possessions they had left, dumped it all out, got rid of everything. So unfortunately, it's going to be a trend. It's happening in other cities too, even as we speak. So that's the most scary part. And then where do you put them? Where do you put them? I mean, if they can't stay there, where do they go?
Yeah, it's a big issue we're struggling with here. I mean, masses of unhomed people, um, and there's vacant properties. So that's the problem. There's people who work full time who can't afford um, to rent out a place for whatever
Right,
reason.
right.
And in the places that are rented out, you'll see two or three families living in one home. It's
Yeah,
craziness, just people stacked on top of people for no apparent reason.
I never understood that, especially like I said, it'd been like uh, the late. When was the last time I saw my dad's folks? I think it was like the in the mid '80s. Okay, that was officially probably about the last time I'd been to the city before I took Suzanne to visit where I used to live and everything. That was a few years ago. So I think technically the last time we got to see it was in, you know, summer 2017. This was just around uh, the last part of August and the beginning of September. That was the very last time we were actually in the city. And, so like I said, that's about 6 years ago. And it looks even worse than it did then. I mean, I know there was some homeless people, but I didn't realize what the scale was, how bad it was and and uh, and everywhere and so we just avoided like huge deluge of poverty and people can't afford to live in that area. I grant you that it's somebody said that probably the least richest person would have to spend about $300,000 if they want to get even a decent home, like even close to the city. If you want to rent, the normal rent runs almost $3,000 a month. If you want to be in the city and you want to have your own apartment or even
Yeah, that's
a
like a
studio,
studio apartment. I was gonna
that's like
say
a
that's
studio.
cheap for, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's like
mean,
a
because we're
studio.
paying, $1,500 a month here for that.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
but you're outside of the city, right? Where do you reside?
Well, I'm talking about the North Bay. So yeah, just
Yeah,
just across the bridge in Marin County and places like that.
and Sausalito. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's expensive. Yeah, everywhere around there, it's insane. Yeah, I mean, if you that's like you said. If you want to get a decent, that sounds right. If you want to get at least a decent studio, look to start paying about between 3 and 4,000. Like after you pay for your electricity, your water, your sewer, everything. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, most places you have that. So like right now I'm making um before taxes and everything, probably about 4 grand a month. Add in
that's not bad.
taxes, child support. I pay 800 a month for my rent, with all utilities and everything included, right?
Thank goodness. Yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, math, where did that go? Um,
yeah. I know what
so
you mean. Yeah,
and then so and I have child support obligations, which is my problem or whatever. But arguing with the state over how much that should be. So right now I'm going from a little over half of my rent amount, so $500 a month, to they want to double it to over $1,000 a month, which is more than my rent, right?
yeah.
So that would be 1,800 total just for that. Out of that $4,000 now. So all of a sudden, it just dwindles down and down and down. And $50 a month for my phone, this, that, and the other thing, price of food, and so it's just been like,
So do
yeah,
you?
it,
Yeah,
it does not add up.
yeah. It
Like,
doesn't.
and I
Yeah,
and I work more than full time, so
right.
and I'm in a state licensed position, right? I'm not in like, I'm not working minimum wage. I'm working, well, I'm what, right now I'm
You're working a
six
state.
dollars above minimum wage per
Yeah,
hour plus
yeah, in
overtime.
a
So
state salary, right? In a state salary.
yeah,
And you said you're living with someone, right? You're sharing a place with someone.
yeah, I'm renting a room, so I share with two other people in my house.
Wow. Yeah. So three of you. Well, that's helpful. Yeah, we had a situation where when I had Suzanne come down to visit, she was going to be sharing my apartment for a little while. We didn't know for how long. I lived in a single one bedroom apartment, which had a washer and a dryer in it. It was really nice, and it was a decent apartment, for being in Northeast Scottsdale, which is tends to be usually a very expensive area to live in, if you want to have a nice house or you know or like what my parents had to pay. I think it was they paid about I'm trying to remember about 700,000. I think it was for their house, but they got it in trade because of and built for them because they sold their other house over in Northeast Phoenix because it got too dangerous to live around there. There was a lot more crime and everything happening. That's where we lived for like 16 years of my boyhood life when I was being raised there. And so when I came back to my apartment, I was paying less than 900. So I was, it was, I had full time. I was working with Safeway, and I was, doing a few other things here and there to help out people, and they would pay me, and it was fine. And then I got a second job. I was working for what they call out here is called Dollarama, but down there in the States they call it Dollar Tree. So I was working for the Dollar Tree like in the mornings, and then I worked for Safeway full time in the afternoons and evenings. So two jobs. That's what I was doing the whole time before I met, or well, for some of the time. Most of the time it was Safeway, but then I was working the second one before I finally met Suzanne in person. So when I brought her down, I'm working the two jobs. She receives a disability check each month. So basically, we were living on three incomes, and while she was sharing the place with me. And then, of course, what happened was they raised the rent, and I didn't know how much they were going to raise it. I wasn't even aware of what was going to happen. And out of the blue, they give us a notice, and they said, okay, by the time you reach blah blah blah, about the middle of the summer or whatever, just before June, I think, uh, they said that they were going to raise the rent to almost $1,200 a month. So that's $300 more I'm going to be paying. Plus, they said that the uh, what normally they had, I guess it was sewer and water included, that was something that you now had to pay for separately, along with electricity. You had to pay to get electricity to stay on into your apartment. So by the time we figured out all the math and ran up everything, it was close to $1,300. And I said, well, the problem with that is one, my store was acquired by another store, and that store was a non-union entity. And I don't want to say their name because it really but suffice it to say they took over our company, Safeway, and they were going to merge. And when they merged, I knew there was going to be a problem. I knew my store that I was working in was going to close in 2 years. They told me it was going to happen, and I listened, and I kept my ear to the ground, and what was going to happen, and I was getting ready. At that point, I said, "Well, we can't afford to live here anymore." And then, the only other possible place that would have been available to us was a trailer park. To rent a trailer and live there. And it would have been affordable, but then it would have been really difficult. So, so finally we just said, yeah, we can't live there. So then we just decided to move here back to Canada, and now we're on a we're on a fixed budget, but we live comfortably. We're not unhappy, and yeah, it's a studio apartment, but I mean, the fact that we're able to share it together and have our cats live here rent free, we don't have to worry about that. So, plus water, fire, uh, sewer, electricity, everything's included in her limited disability budget. It's all included, so we don't even have to pay for that stuff. So, yeah, that's what happened. I just walked away from everything and moved to a new land and new home, and yeah, that's where I'm at now. So,
Yeah, well, I get that. Ultimately, just seeking like a comfortable lifestyle, um,
yeah,
and
it's nice to. Well, what helped is that uh, Suzanne, was already retired because of her medical problems she acquired, and back in 1999. So for a while, she had been living on disability, and she said she lived comfortably. She had no problems, and and it was until later that I realized I had a few medical problems myself. But in the overall, if I had to do it again, I would have done the same thing. I would have walked away and made sure all my accounts were in order and all my affairs were in order, and then make the move. I would have done the same exact thing I did all those years ago. You know,
So, do you think it's just more economically viable up there? Just
I
overall?
I think so. I think if you can find yourself a decent place, and then there are plenty of, I mean, they're starting right now to build a lot more apartment complexes and things, but I think they're going to start raising rent even more for those, for the type of people that may not have disabilities of some kind, but are just looking for a place to live. It is still quite expensive to live here. I won't lie to you, but
And
you know,
marijuana, it's legal, right?
yeah, and it's legal here. There's lots
Yeah.
of places. Yeah, they were trying to do that in Arizona too before we left. They were trying to make
Well, yeah, it's
marijuana
we still
legal.
have the whatever it's state
Yeah,
is legal, but federal is not. So all
yeah,
that good shit.
federal's not, so so they punish you if they say that the federal won't cover it, and you're like, okay, but the city is paying for your building, you're leasing it, so you're paying a lease, but the city is taking care of your building and making sure it's you know pest free or no problems and whatever. And yeah, the federal officials have quite a problem with that. It's they've always been clashing over that. Here in Canada, you really don't have to worry because like as long as you get a permit and you get and you pay for your building and do other things, um, yeah, you have more than the right to open one, and you just don't want to like show it, right? You don't want to go out in the public and just go puff 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 away because I'm sure one of those RC MP MPs will arrest you on the spot and put you
Yeah,
in
go
jail
into
for a
the
couple
hash bar,
hours.
man. Like, what's
Yeah,
wrong with you?
right.
Just smoking on the street like some degenerate? Yeah.
Yeah, like street corner, right? Just not be out there and if you just go into a hash place, hashish they call it a hashish store, or for medicinal things, or you go into a hashish bar, you know, and you go in there and some of the Turkish places they have here, still have those those hookahs they call them. They still have like setups like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you
I
can have
haven't done a
people that.
hookah in a few years. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So, you can have people that walk in there and say, "Hey, can I try a hookah?" Yeah, absolutely, sure. And it's not illegal. No, no, no. We have a license and a permit to be, to be here and do this and with the city. And as long as we're not breaking the law, they'll look the other way and they won't even do anything about it. But like we just said, if somebody walks out the door and they're going, and they probably well, they're going to get arrested. It's there's no doubt. I mean, it's just there's rules and then there are rules. There are restrictions. So yeah, so most people are just like, well, maybe it's better we do it at home. And so a lot of people just do their puffing away and whatever in the security of their home, without facing any repercussions. That's basically what it's like here. So I
Yeah,
personally
yeah.
don't care for the smell. I don't personally care for the smell.
There are actions and then there are consequences. And then there's, everything in between, right?
Yeah, everything exactly, dude. It's it's a topsy turvy world. We just live in it. Yeah,
Indeed.
indeed.
Um, I'm feeling like I should probably wrap up and go to bed. And got a big day ahead of me. Do you have anything planned for the weekend or anything?
Um, no, like I said, I don't have anything planned immediately, But I did mention to you guys that I have the stream that's going to come up next month on June 7th. We changed the time to noon time, or actually, I'm going to change it to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if people are available at that time, we are going to discuss about everything involving James Bond in the franchise. We're going to examine the movies real briefly because there's, there's like 25. Then there's a couple of, there's the parody movie that came out in 1967, which was Casino Royale. Then there's the non-canon movie, which was Never Say Never Again, which came out with Connery for the last time. And then of course, what relationship Kingsman Secret Service has kind of to that, because that's what kind of inspired them was the Bond films. And then there's all these after they did No Time to Die. There's this debate about who's going to be the next James Bond, and you got people ranging from Barbara Broccoli, who's the daughter of the guy who passed away, Cubby Broccoli, who started the franchise in the first place. And she said, "Well, I wouldn't mind if I had a woman Bond to do it, you know." And then you got her husband, Michael J. Wilson, who says, "Oh no, 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 we have to keep with tradition. We got to stay with a man. Man's got to be James Bond. It can't be a woman." You know, there's that internal debate between them, and then you got other people who, you know, excuse me, are trying to come up with whoever they think is going to be. So that's basically what we're going to try to accomplish, is to get a consensus of who they think could be the next Bond, and how they rated their movies, the Bond movies, and which one was their favorite, which one was their worst. Who was the best villain, that sort of thing. I'm going to try to cover it in hopefully no more than 3 hours. The most I want to try for is 3.5. If I can cover every possible angle. But like I said, it'll be my very first StreamYard where I'll invite people to come on the panel. So if you do drop by, I'll invite you for sure. I'll post it like you did in the chat there and invite anyone to come in and. But StreamYard did say you can only have up to 10 people in there, so I'm going to make sure I give them that disclaimer. you know,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just tell them, if you're serious about James Bond, you really enjoy the films, and you've seen them, you've read the books, you played some of the video games. Like I played GoldenEye, and I kind of lost interest after a little while, but I played it. So I said, and I've been to the Bond exhibit. I went to a Bond exhibit, and I stayed 6 hours there and saw everything there was to know about James Bond, and some of the cars and everything. She says it's hard to tell what the topic is.
Oh, there's a comment.
Yeah, from Halcyonic Kaiju. Yeah.
There's a topic? Oh, no, the topic is, well, obviously Mikey is, a total cinephile, which I'm down with that. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm totally getting it. Like, oh yes, I could get into the extended Bond universe a bit, but not tonight. But again, Mikey will be doing a stream on this, and it'll be epic, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like I said, it's right now it was set for 5 p.m. Eastern, and I got some opinions and comments from friends, I believe, including I think it was Sterling, or
And
some people we
that's
talked to, and they said, well, first of all, you don't want to interfere with other streams, because everybody seems to like do their own kind of stream on Wednesdays and things,
mhm.
which is when this is. So I said, well, okay, well, what if I do it like midday, like lunchtime or something? They said, well, that shouldn't be a problem. You could probably find some people to do it, before then. And I said, okay, well, then I'll just go ahead and switch the time. I haven't switched it yet, but like I said, I just decided to go ahead and switch it to 12:30 and Eastern, and that's when it's gonna start, and whatever it ends or whatever.
That's like
Uh,
9. I think that's like 9:30 in the morning my time. So yeah, I'll have to look out for that.
cool.
Um,
Yeah, I don't want it
awesome.
to be too. Yeah, I don't want it to be too early. That's why I said I realized that there are people like yourself on the East Coast or West Coast that live like they're 3 hours behind me. And then there's people in let's say like Australia. I know some Australian people that come on here, and they're like about 14 or 13, or now they're like 13 or 14 hours ahead of us. 16, sorry, my wife just corrected me. 16 hours.
Yeah, it's
And then of
already,
course,
yeah.
yeah, and then some people in England, which are like 5 hours. And I'm like, well, I'm just trying to get an idea of when to run it, and I'm giving myself a couple weeks so I can get all my facts in order, and I got all the movies here. If I care to, I'll pop one in and watch it, but I don't think I need to because like I've seen every one of them at least 20 times or more. In my history. I mean, I even own some of them on VHS. That's how far back I go. So you know, so believe me, I just there's a lot there, and well, like I said, it's going to be a fun-filled, open topic discussion about Bond himself and everything, and I just hope people enjoy it. That's all I want. I just want to have. I mean, even if I draw, let's say, a total of maybe 10 people for the whole thing, I want those 10 people to enjoy it, and I want them to be a part of it. So and then uh, I'll see how to put a few moderators in there so they can keep the chat under control. Without some bots or some crazy people coming there and you know dissing the chat or just making inflammatory comments, that sort of thing. So.
I think that sounds like an absolutely splendid idea.
Yeah, that's what Halcyon Kaiju just said. So thank you, Halcyon Kaiju. You know what, Halcyon, you're gonna have to put your address down for me on YouTube, and I'll subscribe to your channel, and then that way you can see my the an avatar I have right now of our cat is the same one that I use for the Mikey underscore Sue's channel. Mikey underscore Sue's 4 is the channel. So, and I'm friends with, of course, with Trusty Apier, and I've subscribed to his channel. So I think one of the best ways is if you look under subscriptions and see the people that have subscribed and their faces, click on that, and it'll take you right to their channel. That's the best way to do it. It really is. So,
All right. And with that, good night and good luck. And check out Mikey's stuff as well. Oh, here's a link for Halsey.
okay, cool.
Go
Thanks,
grab
Halsey.
that.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, sir. And give me it'll
And
take me like 2 seconds if I can. Let's see if I'm able to highlight it.
I'll give you 12. Namaste. Uh,
Hold
everybody.
on, I've got it. I got it highlighted.
Okay.
Just a sec. Copy. Okay. And paste.